Eric Mwathe for the long weekend here, being May 26th, 2014. Let's take a look at how US markets closed on Friday. You can see the Dow closed up 0.38%, Nasdaq was up 0.76%, S&P 500 was up 0.42%, and we see the VIX made a fresh 52-week low, down 5%. And you can see commodities here pretty much unchanged on Friday. So let's take a look at how things settled out for the week. S&P 500 was up 1.21%. You see that the Dow ended the week, actually the Nasdaq ended the week 2.33%, and the Dow was up only 0.7%. So what we see here is markets making fresh all-time weekly closing highs on the Dow, and also fresh weekly closing highs on the S&P 500. Pretty remarkable feat. So S&P 500 closing for the first time on a weekly basis above 1900. Quite impressive. All right, let's take a look at the charts here. We begin by taking a look at the Nasdaq Weekly. You can see for the week 2.3% to the upside, and we've been talking about the market holding the 50 level, and you can see as of right now it's done that. It's also moved back above this consolidation period here. It's above that level, and it's also back above that 10-week moving average. All to say, looks like even the Nasdaq itself is starting to find some kind of stability and could be working its way higher, especially if it can continue holding that 50 level on the weekly RSI. If you take a look at the Nasdaq Daily, we were expecting resistance, and this has been resistance on a daily. Going back, we've been struggling to hold above that line. You can see previously here, which was this high, and even these small highs here were because of this back test of this line. But as of Thursday and Friday's action, we are now back above that line, suggesting that the market could move higher. And we also see that we moved above the declining top lines here. So the fact that we are moving above this line could suggest that the market has an opportunity to continue moving higher. On the daily for the Nasdaq, we see that we are now back above that 50-day moving average after finding support on the 200-day moving average. Seems like a very healthy pullback as of right now. Even this trend line has held. So seems like the pullback was healthy. The market found support where it needed to, and now seems like it's constructing another move to test recent highs. If we take a look at the Dow Weekly, you can see we've been talking about 16,478, which was this weekly closing high at the end of 2013. Anything above that is a breakout level, and that's where we closed. So seems like even the Dow is not being left behind. Now the Dow Daily, if you take a look at the Dow Daily, you'll see that it found support after recent pullback to the 50-day on this RSI lows line. So that also held the 50. So, you know, there's a lot of talk that the market has to pull back, but yet we don't see it. So we need to see the pullback before we can start making conclusions of where the market can and cannot go. If you take a look at the transports, this is week number 4 or number 5 after breaking out here above 75.92. So very impressive. Also, we are above this declining negative divergence line, which has now been breached, which suggests that this market is very strong and has an opportunity now that it's above 69.10 on the weekly RSI, has the opportunity to continue moving higher even with shallow pullbacks. Take a look at the S&P 500. Nice breakout here, again above the recent weekly closing high of 1881.14. Also seems like on the weekly this was negative divergence line. Now we are above that negative divergence line, suggesting that this support that took place at the 50 level on the weekly RSI is now starting to bear fruit with this move. If this move continues just creeping to the upside, don't be surprised to see higher highs being registered in this market. Take a look at the S&P 500 daily. Now you start seeing some signs of resistance on the daily, because this is where it has been stalling, and there seems to be topside. If you take the highs on the RSI on the daily, do a straight line, we seem to be finding resistance exactly at that level. So it would not surprise me that this becomes where a market can be trapped. We are making higher highs here on a daily basis on the S&P 500, but those higher highs are not being confirmed by the technicals. As you can see, we keep making lower lows on the daily RSI. So for this market to actually have a nice move, it does need to break out above that line. Now this type of resistance can also be seen on the S&P 500 hourly, and it is this level here. That level has been where it's been struggling, recently struggled to move above that level here, which was those highs, struggled to hold that level there, which was those highs, struggled here to hold that level, which was that high, and you can see we are back in this general area. So if resistance is going to take place, it's going to take place, and it's going to initially be seen on the hourly, and then the daily is going to confirm it, and probably the weekly charts are also eventually going to confirm that. But anything that shows resistance on this level here suggests that this could be a short-term high. Anything above that is going to be, of course, very bullish. Now don't forget that the S&P 500 monthly is trading way above 69.10, and as long as it's holding above that, you have to conclude that's a strong market. Remember, it stayed above 69.10 here for about 4 years, 95, 96, 97, and 98. And even going into, it recaptured that level there about in 99. So still, even with this shallow pullback here, it generally stayed in this area above 69.10, which is this general most magnificent bull market run over the last couple of years. So don't forget that, yes, we all know that this is what people call oversold or overbought, but as long as it's holding that level above 69.10, you really have to be open to the idea that the market could surprise all of us and continue making higher highs just somehow week to week. Take a look at the QQQ weekly. Remember, we talked about this line here going back to the lows of 08, 09 on the RSI level. This line held a couple weeks ago, and once it held and moved back above 50, the conclusion was that we should expect this market to move higher, which is exactly what it's done. So the market is doing exactly what it needs to do. It found support exactly where you wanted support to come. Also, support was being expected, and we were expecting support on this level here on the weekly RSI there, because that has been very successful. Like recently, that held, that support level held there, and that support level held. You can see the market came very close to that level and held. So we've been expecting the market to move higher, which is exactly what it's been doing. It makes a lot of sense. If we take a look at the VIX, we can see the VIX here closing at 52-week lows. What that means is hard to tell, because sometimes this extreme move down suggests that the market is way extended to the upside. So I don't know what this means, but as long as it stays weak, the market is going to continue being strong. Also, you can conclude that unless the VIX can move above this declining RSI line. So why don't we make this observation? Until the VIX can move above this declining RSI line on the daily, the market should be safe on the upside, or at least the bulls should be in control. Down the road, if the VIX moves above this line, then maybe we can start looking for some short ideas. Right now, the bulls are firmly in control of the direction of this market. Let's take a look at Apple here, and we've been talking about the back test of this line there. Now it's above that line. Of course, we want to wait and see, or at least we'll see where it's going to close at the end of this month. I will not be surprised that this line becomes very difficult for it to close above this by the end of the month. Who knows? But anything above that, anything above 600, like we've been talking, gives the stock a chance to move higher. It's also above this line on the monthly RSI where the stock has done well. Like recently, you can see in 09, once it moved above that line here at a price of about, I'll call it about 160, it had a nice run. And so as long as it's holding above this general area here, that's bullish. So we'll see what happens. Right now it looks like above 600 is good, above this back test of that line is good. Anything that confirms resistance on this line is bearish. Anything that confirms that this RSI level is back below this line here, anything below this line is bearish. So for now, we can say that the stock is doing good above 600, above the back test, and so maybe it has a chance here, but we will need to see where it closes at the end of this month. If it pulls back significantly by the end of the month and confirms resistance on this line, my conclusion here is that we are seeing short-term highs. Anything back below 600 is confirmation that the stock really cannot maintain that 600 level.